Debunking the myths of being an accountant. Is it boring? Are you just going to be sat on a calculator all the time? Well, you're in the right place. You're here with two accountants who are going to take you through what has worked in our careers, things that we wish we'd have known. And if you've got any questions, leave us a comment below. But Grace, feel free to introduce yourself to the guys who are watching today and how we can help them out debunk those myths.
Hi, I'm Grace Hardy. I did an accounting apprenticeship and became a qualified accountant, and now I run my own accountancy practice.
We've got lots to talk about. If you don't know already, I'm James. I'm ACCA qualified. Probably seen that from the channel. But let's get straight into it now with Grace. I mean, when you first started doing your AAT, then setting up your own practice, what were those sort of myths that people had that when you're going through it, like it's going to be boring, are you going to have to buy a grey suit, Grace? I mean, what was it all about?
So for me, I think the first myth I thought was that every accountant was an old man with bald hair in a jury suit, and he was really, really dull. And I think that's what I thought of when I thought of an accountant. And obviously, that's not the case. There are some of those out there, but accountants are absolutely everyone. I also thought that I would just be sitting behind a desk going through loads and loads of paperwork and that it would be really dull. But actually, once I got into the role, it was actually quite exciting. I got to work with loads of really cool clients and also go to client site as well and be with those clients and see where they work.
Yeah, exactly. Those are sort of the similar things that I used to hear when I left university, got my first graduate role, ACCA contracts. I went, am I just going to be sat in a room where people are just going to give me a box of stuff? I'm just going to have to type it all up and then, I don't know, probably get told off or something on those lines. I mean, what about the people side of accounting as well? How have you found it in your sort of career that maybe the clients you deal with, the people you've worked with?
I think I love all the people that I've worked with. They were so supportive as well. And I didn't realize the accountancy space was so supportive,
Mm.
especially setting up my own practice. The amount of people who have been business owners before and reached out and given me guidance and help and answer my questions is actually just so lovely. And it feels like such a safe and like supportive space.
Oh, wicked on there. And whilst we're talking about businesses, small, medium, large, what about the sort of scope of types of businesses and the roles that you can do? I mean, again, it was sort of like, oh, am I just going to be sat on a computer working on someone else's money forever? But then when you actually get out into the real world, you go, I can go work for BP, I can go work for a bank, I can go work anywhere around the world because the skills I have are transferable because every business needs accountants because you've got to deal with things like cash flow, profitability, earnings per share. I mean, what are your thoughts on just the variability and the sort of scope that someone who gets an accounting qualification or is thinking about being an accountant could go into?
I think it's pretty much endless. When I was in corporate, I worked with clients like Tiffany's, we had manufacturers, we had a banana distributor, like honestly, completely endless. And as you said, every single business needs an accountant. So if you're passionate about sport, you can go into sport and be an accountant there. You can go into the creative industry or the film industry and be an accountant there because every single film also has a budget and someone needs to make sure that you're sticking to the budget and make sure everyone gets paid as well. So you don't necessarily have to work for an accounting firm. You can work for any business.
And speaking of businesses, because you and I are both business owners, what about running your own business and having skills of being an accountant and experience on there? I mean, how has having an accounting qualification helped you run your own business more effectively, more profitably, all these sort of things?
I think it's been so amazing because I think the first place where people get stuck is, do I start as a sole trader or do I start as a limited company? And also, what do those words even mean for me and for my business? But because I came from an accountancy background, I know what those two things mean, and I was
Mm.
able to make an educated decision on which way I was going to go. It also means you know how to be tax efficient and tax plan and all those great things all other businesses want to know. And I also think you're able to set forecasts and budgets really, really well because you've been doing that forever, really.
Yeah, exactly. And if you've got a minor interest in tax or setting up your own business, one thing that sort of played in my mind when I got my first accounting job was I looked at how much the charge out rate was for the managers or directors of, say, even just a small practice. And you're looking at £150 an hour, all the way up to sort of 300, 400, depending on the time, period of the year. And they're going, I can learn this stuff and then I wouldn't have to pay someone. Granted, if I wanted a bit more advice, then hey, it's worth it on there. But just little things like that you could just get yourself going. And when I started my business and you learn about things like cash flow, I bought hundreds, nearly £1,000 worth of stock. And I'm there going, this is what the book told me about, where you've got cash, your money that you buy things with, and then you send it off and you go, I've just spent over £1,000 on stuff. And you go, I can't get that money back. And I'm there going, this is like a real life example, what you do in the books, that you can then relate it back to the real life. I mean, what other real life skills can it help you out with, would you say, from your experience, Grace?
I definitely would say things like invoicing and expenses because you know what a tax deductible is and
Mm,
what you can put through your company and what you can't put through your company. I'd also say things like managing your invoices is really good because you know about payment dates and that you should put one in your contract or your letter of engagement, whatever it might be, so that you can be paid on time. And I think that's really important as well. And then you're able to manage your cash flow so well because you know what's going out and you also know what's coming in.
No, no, really, really good points on there from just all your experience. And one of the other things as you were saying that sprung to mind was the hours on there or the job role itself. That people hear about the big four, your KPMGs, your PwCs in there, and one of those other sort of myths is it's like, am I just going to not have a life on there? Or what's it actually like in terms of the hours and the job itself? I mean, from your experience meeting people who've worked at the big four or large companies in industry, what's it sort of been like in terms of that work life and even study balance? Because you're probably doing some exams as well.
I think it's very varied, but I also think that you do have a work-life balance. So you do have times in the year where it's quieter than others, so you don't have to work evenings or weekends or anything like that. It is very much 9 to 5. Busy season runs from January to April, so there are some times where people do work later because there is more to do because it's in the run up to the end of the tax year. But I think it's very doable. For me personally, when I was doing my study, I would study a couple of evenings, maybe one
Mm.
morning on the weekend, but that would really be it. And then I'd have all the rest of the time to myself.
Yeah, it's working out what works best for you based on your commitments that you have in your life. There'll be people who are watching it going, "Oh, I've got children, James. Maybe I've got a long commute every day." All these sort of factors, you've just got to sort of work it out, but then communicate that with the team who you're actually sort of working for on that. But Grace, what are the other myths that spring to mind about accounting when you first started that maybe we haven't touched on yet? That you go, I've got to get it on record today because it could help someone out.
I think that it's just really dull and boring and very mind numbing, which I also thought when I was going into it. I thought, oh my God, this is going to be such a drag. And it wasn't. It actually is very like stimulating and you learn so much, especially running your own practice. You get to pick your own clients, which is, I love that. And so I make sure all my clients and I get on and we can have a chit chat about things and just
Mm.
create a really nice, safe environment that I actually really enjoy working in.
Yeah, and the skills that you develop, granted, there are going to be some times where some of the tasks are just going to be a bit monotonous on there. They're just probably going to be a bit repeating. Like if you've got clients who are VAT registered, you're going to have to do a VAT return every year. You've got to do your tax returns, all these sort of things with working papers. You have to do it. You can't get away from it, I'm afraid. But the other things that you'll start to really like, which you touched on really nicely there, Grace, was actually getting to meet clients as well and going to do a bit of traveling to go see how their world operates and how you can add value on there. And then that's where your practice can go from, from strength to strength. And you and I will be chatting in 5, 10 years time, and you're going to have probably over 1,000 clients by then. Is that one of your targets, maybe?
I think at the moment I quite like having a small firm because it means everything is a bit more personal and I can make time for every single one of my clients. I do want to grow, but I also don't want to lose that personal touch, is something I'm very aware of.
Oh, yeah. Well, it comes back to the people side, doesn't it, as well? So it's not always just about the numbers. And then the only final thing that sprung to my mind, what are your thoughts on, say, AI, technology? Lots of people will be saying, oh, the AI is just going to replace accountants altogether. I mean, what are your thoughts on that and the adoption of the technology and AI?
I don't necessarily think that they're coming to replace us. I think that they're coming to help us.
Hmm.
I find with a lot of my clients, you can Google questions, but Google doesn't give you specific answers for your specific situation. And it's always best to speak to someone about it. And
Hmm.
I think that's probably the same with AI. Also, people want face to face contact. They want to speak to an actual person who's going to help solve their problems and also listen to them, which is really, really important. I think AI is a great tool in the fact that it will make things run so much more efficiently and
Hmm.
help us potentially spot errors we haven't seen in ourselves and save so much time. So I think it's a tool we can really embrace, but I don't think it's going to take over everything that we do.
I completely agree on that. AI is not going to take your job. Someone who uses AI is going to take your job because they are adopting and adapting to the new technologies and saving time on those tasks, like you touched on. So if there's one of many takeaways from this video, just get a bit familiar with the softwares that you're using and the different platforms out there and use it to your advantage on there. Start with maybe Copilot on there, could be a good one for you. But are there any other final points, Grace, that you wouldn't be able to sleep tonight unless we've got it on record for those final myths to hand on there? We've talked about people in grey suits and being boring and maybe the hours to it. Is there anything else that you think, that would be a good one to note down?
I just think the opportunity that comes with having an accounting qualification, you don't just have to be an accountant. You can
Mm,
go and be a finance director. You can go be a CFO in a company. You can go be a CEO in a company because you come from a financial background and you have that understanding of how a business works and how to improve it. So I think that it's so important to be aware that you don't just have to sit in the box of being an accountant. You can literally go do anything. It opens so many doors.
Oh, completely agree. And I took students out to India, and they were all from a sort of tourism, marketing, advertising background. And we went to this corporate office of one of the leading travel agents in India, and we're sat there in the boardroom. We meet the board of directors, and they're expecting to say, "Oh, I'm marketing, I'm tourism on there." All of them accountants who don't do much accounting anymore because they like tourism and going around to find places and stuff like that. And just go, it was such an eye opener for the guys and the students who are there to say, I need to get good with my numbers because look at these people who are running this multinational company. These are the skills that I need to develop if I want that trajectory in my career on there. So hopefully that has debunked some of the myths of accounting for today, Grace. And we've maybe you and I, Grace, we've inspired someone to go and become one. How about that?
That would be fabulous.
That'll be all right. Well, guys, feel free to leave us any questions you have down below. I'll be more than happy to help out. Grace, thank you so much for coming on today. A delight as ever to see and hear your lovely voice, as always.
Thank you.
That's all right. Well, I'll make sure I put all of Grace's details down below, guys. Check out her content. It's absolutely fabulous on there. And we'll see you in another video shortly. So best of luck, and we'll see you soon.